I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.
What up, me militia? I'm Mean Joe Grizzly, and when I'm not being thrown headfirst into the new DC Cinematic Universe, I'm at the Grizzly Cave, watching movies, reading comics, listening to metal, and of course, crushing beers. And I am back at the Grizzly Cave to bring y'all my review of one of my most anticipated movies of the year, James Gunn's Superman. Not only is this the newest iteration of the Big Blue Boy Scout, but this is also the kickoff of the new DC Cinematic Universe. So the real question is, did James Gunn bring us something new, refreshing to DC movies? Or did he just start out on a bad note and now he's going to be behind the 8 ball the entire time? Let's find out. This is Grizzly Grade Reviews. When Superman gets drawn into conflicts at home and abroad, his actions come under scrutiny from not only the public, but the United States government, thus giving the billionaire tech mogul Lex Luthor the opportunity to take out the Man of Steel once and for all. So like I said before, to say that this movie was one of my most anticipated films in the year, that is an understatement, because I have been wanting the DC movies to really step up for a very long time. I liked some of the Snyderverse stuff, but for me, they didn't completely embody the DC comics that I loved. I loved Ben Affleck's Batman. I do think that that might have been one of the best aspects of that universe, even though he does kill a lot of people. But I also liked Henry Cavill as Superman. They might not have tonally got him right, but they 100% got him right as a good on-screen Superman. But in the entire cinematic history of DC, they've never really gotten a truly comic-accurate version of Superman. Sure, Christopher Reeve was good, probably the best of all time, and then you have Henry Cavill, and he was really good too, and he's one of my favorites, but that was like the only two that we really had to deal with. We have Tom Welling in the Smallville show, but we all know that Smallville's nothing like the comics. And, you know, we had a couple of here and there, but overall, the most accurate versions of Superman we have gotten have been in like the DC animated movies and the Bruce Timm universe of animated shows. So when James Gunn announced that he was going to be writing and directing this movie, I was excited. And yet I was very, very reserved and very nervous too, because I like James Gunn as a director. I really enjoy all 3 of his Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I really liked his Suicide Squad movie, and I love Peacemaker. So what I was worried about is that he was going to bring that crude humor into a Superman movie. And I was also worried that he was going to somehow just not get the character of Superman right at all. And I can tell you right now, without a shadow of a doubt, that all of my concerns have been put to rest, because this is the best on-screen iteration of Superman that we have ever gotten when it comes to comic accuracy. And honestly, coming from someone who has been reading comics for years, and that is from all publishers, Marvel, DC, Valiant, Image, IDW, all of these different comic publishers I'm a huge fan of. DC is my absolute favorite. I love DC Comics. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that even the little bit that we got in this movie, this is the closest to the comic universe that we have gotten in the cinematic universe ever. So let's talk about it. Starting out with the positives, David Corn Sweat as Superman is great. He is not good, he is great. He embodies that character not only in stature, build, and mannerisms, but the actual heart of that character, which is a character who wants to save everybody, wants to save everything, wants to do the right thing all the time, whether it is a detriment to him or his image or anything around him. He wants to save everyone. And that is how the character of Superman is. Superman might not be, for people who are very well versed in the comics, he might not be the strongest character in the universe, but he is definitely one of the strongest characters, and his morality and his code and his moral compass is something that everyone is inspired to. And this version of Superman I could say is one that will inspire people to find the good in everything and to try to help everyone in every situation. And although you don't get to see him very often, Dave Cornsweet's Clark Kent is very well done as well. It's very reminiscent of how it was with Christopher Reeve's version of Superman, where there is a version of Superman where when he is Superman, he is tall, he stands tall, he's confident, he is a person of interest, someone who commands respect in a room just by having his presence there, and a presence that makes everyone feel safe when he finally shows up to save the day. And then you have both of their versions of Clark Kent, which are these fumbling, clumsy, very awkward doofus, and he embodies both of those perfectly. Now, there are a few things I will get into later that James Gunn has him do that is out of character for Superman, but overall, he absolutely nailed it, and he is a great Superman for this cinematic universe. And I'm going to say it right now, the next two characters that I'm going to be talking about are definitely the best on-screen iterations of these characters that we have ever gotten, and to me it is not debatable. Starting out, we have Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, and she is the quintessential Lois Lane. When I tell you that she nailed this character in the mannerisms, the stature, the demeanor, the personality, everything. She plays that hard-nosed, take no shit reporter that is going to do whatever it takes to get the story. And that is exactly how Lois Lane is in the comics. And what I really liked about it is that you see this in the trailer, so this isn't really a spoiler, but she will grill anyone. She will be fair in the way she covers anything. She is the definition of gray. She doesn't have white or black. She is gray in her morality and how she covers things, completely unbiased. It will call out anybody's bullshit, even Superman's. She is brash, stubborn, and relentless, and that is exactly how Lois Lane is in the comics. And her and David Cornsweet's on-screen romance is very organic, and it's very realistic because they're not a perfect couple. They have problems. They have fights just like everybody else does. They're not this picture perfect, like completely unbelievable couple that always get along and never have any kind of disagreements or anything. And it was really good to see them give this on-screen iteration of them where they are both at odds with each other because they're disagreeing on how Superman handled a situation. And this just gives them really realistic on-screen chemistry. Now, this is 100% not debatable. You might be able to have a debate with Lois Lane, but you will never have a debate with me on this. Nicholas Hoult is the best on-screen Lex Luthor that we have ever gotten. And again, that's not debatable. In the comics, Lex Luthor is one of the smartest individuals in the entire DC universe, and one of the things that makes him so dangerous is his intellect and his tenacity and his relentlessness to do what he wants to do. And the other characteristic that has always defined his character is of how much of a hater he is of Superman. He hates Superman with every fiber in his being, and it's due to his absolute jealousy of how physically dominant and how much of a physical specimen Superman really is, how he is a god among men. And Luthor has that god complex himself due to his superior intellect and arrogance, but he is truly not a god among men like Superman is, and he has always hated Superman because of this. And Nicholas Hoult perfectly embodies this, and the way that they have him be this formidable opponent to Superman is straight out of the comics. Other iterations of Lex Luthor, whether it be Gene Hackman or Kevin Spacey or even Michael Rosenbaum, they've all had bits and pieces of this character, but they have never completely embodied that character like Nicholas Hoult has. I'll even go as far as to say that the closest one that's embodied Luthor in the comics is probably Jesse Eisenberg, even though he's not really on screen enough for us to even know his motivations or even his technical prowess when it comes to him being a genius. But in this version, we see it firsthand and on full display. It was finally good to get a Luthor who had motivations that wasn't real estate. That's something that has plagued this character in cinema for decades now. And they kind of broke away from that with Rosenbaum's version of Smallville and Jesse Eisenberg's version of the Snyderverse. But They never really went full-blown mad scientist with this character, and they finally did. And it was so refreshing to see that. The Justice Gang is great, particularly Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner. He completely nailed that character. That character in the comics is one of the biggest assholes ever, and Nathan Fillion just 100% nailed it. He is that person that is such a dick all the time, but when the time comes and you need somebody, he's going to be the one that's in your corner ready to fight to the death for you. Isabella Merced is playing Hawkgirl, and although I think that her costume's great and she fits the character pretty well, she didn't really get any chance to shine as much as the other characters did in this movie, because Hawkgirl's a very hit first, ask questions later type of character, and they really didn't give us that. But nevertheless, she looked apart and she was pretty good. There is one thing that I didn't like that they did with her character, and I will be getting to that later, but she still did a pretty good job. But the absolute standout out of the Justice Gang was Mr. Terrific, played by Eddie Gathke. He was awesome. He embodied that character perfectly, and the way that Gunn wrote him is straight out of the comics. I'm going to be saying that a lot. All this stuff is straight out of the comics. And when I tell you that he made Mr. Terrific more than I ever thought that he would, I was super shocked and so impressed with how they handled that character, because they made him this formidable force without having any superpowers, just one of the smartest characters in the entire DC universe, getting brought to life on the screen with all of his mental facets and all of his technology and everything. It was so damn cool to see that. And all of the support cast is great too. Everyone at the Daily Planet, from the guy who plays Perry White to Cat Grant to the guy who played Jimmy Olsen. I'm not familiar with the actor's name, but he was in The Righteous Gemstones and he played a damn good Jimmy Olsen. Everybody in this movie played their parts perfectly. Even Anthony Kerrigan, he played Metamorpho, the Element Man, just played that character, even though he doesn't have hardly any lines. He played that character so damn well as this tragic monster that just wants to be left alone and wants to have peace in his life. It was so damn good and refreshing to see these characters be done so well. Moving on to the feel of the movie, this movie is the most comic book movie I have seen in a long time. Maybe the most comic book movie I've seen ever. And that is not only to its advantage, but also to its detriment. And that is something I'll talk about later. But this movie literally feels like it's a comic brought to life on the screen, like you're reading the panels of a comic. And that's established through its cinematography, through its storytelling, its pacing. Everything feels like I'm reading a comic. And that is something that I've just been wanting from these movies for so damn long that no one has managed to do yet. And James Gunn pulled it off. You're thrown right into this universe with very little explanation, and yet it feels so damn familiar. And you get little bits and pieces from this world, and a lot of it is through dialogue, and the dialogue is kind of just hand-wavy, but you get what you need without hardly any information, without us having to watch yet another origin story for any of these characters. And that's something that has been exhausting in superhero movies. Sometimes we do need origin stories on more obscure characters, but we don't always need that. We don't need to see Spider-Man, Superman, and Batman's origins done over and over and over again. We just need them to be established characters and the story to be written well, and they finally achieved that in this movie. Even the story is just like it is in the comics, where it's a bunch of subplots all stringed together to make one big plot, and normally that does not work in movies. And it worked in this one. It was, I don't know how James Gunn achieved that, but somehow it really did work. And again, it does have some issues with that, but overall, they nailed it. And finally, the score of the movie, they take the old John Williams score and they give it this new variation of it, and it's incredible. It's really, really well done. And it's something that I was wondering how they were going to use it, and I think that they did a good job with that as well. Moving on to the mix aspects, although I think that Dave Cornsweet is a very good on-screen Superman, and they embody his personality and his stature and everything almost perfectly, there are a couple of scenes here and there where they make him go completely out of character from how he is in the comics. And normally I would let that slide, but it's one of those things where this movie is beating its chest on comic accuracy, and since it's beating its chest on it, I'm going to judge it pretty harshly on it. And I can tell you that there's one scene in particular that I'll go to that is something that was very out of character for Superman for me. And you see it in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler at all. But there's a scene where Lex Luthor and Superman come face to face, and they are engaging in a very heated conversation where Superman knows that Lex has done something, and he is trying to pretty much intimidate Lex into undoing what he has done. And Lex just keeps his cool the whole time. And frankly, the way that Lex handles this is just like Lex in the comics and how he would handle it. Superman, on the other hand, he kind of throws a temper tantrum like a child. He throws stuff across the room. He screams and yells and gets all emotional. And Superman really doesn't do that in the comics. I'm not saying that Superman has never lost his cool, because that would be absolutely a lie. But I've never recall him ever throwing a temper tantrum like he did with Lex in this scene. And that was very jarring and very noticeable for me as someone who reads the comics. But it's not really a crime, and it's not something that I think is a detriment to the movie. I just felt like that they did so well with getting this character right, and then they really dropped the ball on that one scene. So it's not enough for me to just completely condemn the entire personality of the character, but that one scene I am very mixed on, because I definitely, given the subject of why he was approaching Lex and why they were in this heated discussion, I 100% agree that it's justified for him to be as angry as he was. It just didn't really fit with what they were already establishing with this character. And although I don't think it's a crime, and I don't think that it's so super detrimental, and I certainly understand the logic behind why this happened, but Superman gets his ass kicked a lot in this movie. And it's one of those things that I don't mind it, because when Superman is all powerful and he never has a chance of losing, he is 100% boring. And when I was a kid, that's how I always perceived Superman, and why I gravitated more towards Batman and Spider-Man and more human-like characters that could be beaten and had to deal with that conflict of losing. And Superman, as a kid, he just never, in my perception, he never had to deal with that. I don't think that they make him look weak necessarily, but they make him someone who can be beaten. And James Gunn does a really good job of putting logic with how he can be defeated in this movie. There is several times in this movie where he gets into a conflict, and the means by which he is losing the fight or struggling in this fight is 100% justified, and it is logically put together. So that was something that I thought was very well handled, but at the same time, they did it a little too much for my taste, which is why it ends up here in the mix section, because I do want Superman to be that character that when he shows up, everyone is like, okay, we've won now. And at the same time, I don't want people to say, okay, here comes Superman, the fight's over with. So it's a very hard thing to balance, and I think that Gunn did the best he could with it, but I felt like he did a little bit of overkill with it. And the comedy in the movie, even though it's very family friendly, does give this movie a more whimsical tone and gives this movie a more lighthearted tone, which is something I did want from this movie, but the comedy just didn't land for me all the time, and some of it seemed a little bit juvenile. But that kind of goes with how James Gunn's directing style is. The one thing that does concern me in the future, and I just recently seen a article where this was asked of James Gunn, is all of these movies going to have the same tone? Are they going to have like how the Marvel movies do, where most of these movies have this specific tone that they're going for, particularly in the first 10 years that Marvel was doing that? And he said, no, every single movie is going to have a different tone than the other. A Superman movie is going to feel like a Superman movie. A Batman movie is going to feel like a Batman movie, and vice versa. And he even went as far as to say the Clayface movie that they're developing is going to be a flat-out horror movie, a body horror movie, which to me is so damn refreshing to hear, because every movie doesn't have to be the same. It doesn't have to follow the same formula. It can have conflicting tones. It can have different tones of the movie. It can have different aspects that all the movies don't share. And that's something that was really, really refreshing to hear James Gunn say. So although it ends up here in the mix section, it's not something that I think is going to be a problem in the future. Moving on to the negatives, the one big negative that I have about this movie is leaning more towards the mixed aspect, because as a comic book reader, I understand and was not jarred by the pacing of the movie. But people who don't read comics, this movie is going to be moving so fast that they are going to feel like it was just jumbled together and it looks like it's a mess. And the structure of the movie is also going to lend to that aspect as well. Because in comics are a bunch of subplots linked together in an overarching main plot. And that's what James Gunn did when he made this movie. And it fit for me. It worked for me most of the time. But for a casual moviegoer, it's going to look like just a quick lightning round scenes put together and jumbled up in a messy script. And that's not the case here. But I do think that the pacing affects the movie in the aspect of it doesn't allow emotionally impactful scenes to breathe very well. And that's something that I did find to be a problem. There is a scene between Clark Kent and Pa Kent where Pa Kent is essentially telling him how damn proud he is of him. And it is a very emotional scene. And that emotion is completely undercutted because it jumps right into another scene almost immediately and doesn't give that time to marinate at all. And I do think that was a negative that I was worried about going into this movie. As far as the other complaints that I have or the other problems I have with the movie, these are really, really nitpicky. And it's got to do with me being such a comic nerd. But because I am such a comic book nerd and a stickler for comic accuracy, and this movie is beating its chest to the crowd of being comic accurate, I have to talk about these nitpicks I have because these really bothered me. As of right now, I don't like that they used the character of Ultraman so early, because they really could have had a super cool thing happen when we finally get a Justice League assembled where they meet their crime syndicate counterparts. That's the thing that a lot of people don't read comics don't know. There is a multiverse in DC just like there is a multiverse in Marvel. And DC handles their multiverse way better than Marvel ever hoped it could. And they have an Earth that is known as Earth 3, and Earth 3 is the home of the crime syndicate, where the villains and these heroes are flopped in their morality. And the crime syndicate is the Justice League of that universe, only they are essentially the mob, and they run the entire planet. They control everything. And their version of Superman is Ultraman. And they took that persona in this movie and did something different with it. And although what they did with it wasn't necessarily bad, it kind of made me a little mad that they used this character, this title so damn early in this cinematic universe, when it could have been something that could have been built up for a Justice League movie and been fucking awesome. If they would have brought in the dark counterparts of these characters, it would have been something that would have been so damn cool. And I feel like that they may have blown that opportunity. I do think there is time to right the ship and actually bring that back around, but it was something that I wasn't a fan of. These next two are definitely nitpicky, but they meant something to me because when Hawk Girl shows up, one of the things that holds her character back for me, not only is she kind of underdeveloped as far as the rest of the characters go, but when Hawk Girl is flying, she is screeching like a hawk the entire time, and it is fucking stupid. It is so damn dumb. She does not do that in the comics. That is not something that is comic accurate, and for something that small for James Gunn to miss that was kind of disappointing, because it was, I don't know if it was him just trying to be funny or what, but it made the character look stupid, and I really couldn't take that character serious. And my last nitpick, and probably my most biggest gripe with these little nitpicky things that I have with it is how they handled the Kents. And man, this is going to make me sound really, really dumb, but I don't care because it really did bother me. I am from the South. I am from South Carolina. It don't get more hick than me. I have a very, very thick Southern accent, and I completely understand that. However, the way that the Kents are portrayed in this movie, they are full-blown redneck hillbilly hick. And I'm sorry, but I've never been to Kansas, but I've met people from Kansas, and none of them act that way. And not only that, it is the most overly exaggerated version of a hick accent that is almost to cartoonish levels. It is like someone, it's like someone that's in California or New York mimicking or making fun of someone who has a Southern accent. And it was just fucking stupid. And it didn't make any sense to me to have that happen. Now, he could have made them a little more country than what a normal person was. But to just have them, I mean, they were just one step away from like spit tobacco on the floor and having a freaking wheat twig hanging out of their mouth and having like overalls on. That's the only thing they were missing. And it was just a very strange and weird choice. And honestly, it makes us Southerners look ignorant. And I know that sounds like getting offended just to get offended, but I wasn't necessarily offended. I just thought it was just a tired old trope, the dumb Southern people. And it was just something that I thought, James Gunn, you're better than that. That was a really dumb choice. But that's why it's in the nitpick section, because other than the way that they had portrayed them, I thought they played the Kents very well as far as how they genuinely love Clark and how they are so supportive of him. It was just, why do you got to have them sound like this? Hey, Clark, I washed your boots. Hey, we seen you on the television. Like, James Gunn, that's not how Southern people talk. Not at all. But James Gunn made me a believer in this cinematic universe, and it's something that I am so damn thankful that he was able to pull off, because I am now really excited about this cinematic universe. No matter how obscure the project is, I'm now all in and here for it, because I think that he 100% nailed this. He already was behind the 8 ball with how bad the Snyderverse failed, and I was just rooting for him just to get an okay movie out, and he ended up greatly exceeding my expectations. And it was so good to see him bring in all of these elements from this universe without making Superman a secondary character in his own movie. So for that, I commend you, James Gunn, and keep up the good work and just continue to get better and better in this cinematic universe, because I'm here for it. I'm all in. So with all that being said, Superman gets a 4.25 out of 5 and is 100% Grizzly grade guaranteed. Go out and see this movie. Even if you have superhero fatigue, please give this movie a shot, because this is a comic book movie that is so comic book that we've never seen this before. It is truly something great to see that it is 100% a comic book movie for comic book fans that casual fans can also enjoy. So I recommend you go out and see it right now. And with that, we're going to bring this video to an end. Thank you all so much for your continued support and patience. Without y'all, this channel isn't possible. And if you like this video, like it. And if you like it enough, please head over to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe and bell buttons so that you never miss a video. Also, please follow me on all social media platforms so that you can get channel updates, movie news, and all forms of badassery. Coming up next, we have the long-awaited Legacy sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I'm pretty excited about this one too, after having rewatched the original and finding out that it is a lot better than I remember it being. I'm actually pretty excited about this. So stay tuned for that review, and remember, I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.